Couple nights ago, the Mariners lost a game they really should have won. Tonight, they won a game they really should have lost, thanks to a gutsy performance from their pitching staff. Let's talk about it here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, September 7th, 2023. This is Trident and Colby Patned for the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you so much for making us your first listen after the game. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. 1-0, the final score from Tropicana Field. Mariners win the first of 4 against the Rays. While the box score will say otherwise, this really wasn't a pitcher's duel. This was bad offense, folks. Both teams. Luis Castillo battled his way through 6, but he was far from great. Zach Littell benefited greatly from a horrendously over-aggressive game plan from the Mariners, but in the end, the Mariners steal a game from one of the best teams in baseball. They gain a half game on the Astros, Rangers, and Blue Jays, who all had the day off. So it feels really good to get this one. Colby, no, there's a lot to pick apart here. And I know you have a lot of complaints, and we'll get to all of it. But your overall thoughts on getting the win tonight?
Mariners fans should get on their knees, hold their palms up, and thank whatever deity they choose, because somehow, some way, the Seattle Mariners won a baseball game that they had no business winning. They played awful today. Offense was hot garbage. Castillo, no idea where the ball's going as he throws it. Isaiah Campbell's probably the best player on the field today. Go figure. Munoz is walking guys and hitting guys, and you can't hold runners, and it's just, oh my God, that was a disaster of a win. So at the end of the day, you win. So it's 1-0. It's ugly, and like you said, it was really a mid-off between two offenses that should have done a lot better, a lot more than what they did against the pitchers that they were facing. I mean, so, sometimes you have to win like that. Sometimes you have to win ugly, and it's an incredibly frustrating game to watch. I would never want to watch another game like that again. Neither team really, just a lot of bad at-bats to go around for kind of different reasons too. A little bit different game plans. But it was a battle of who cares between two offenses who didn't look like they could be bothered to show up today. And the Mariners got just enough offense and survived what might be the worst single baseball game I've ever seen somebody play, and Josh Rojas. I'm sure we'll touch on that in a little bit.
We're going to go over that later. Yeah.
Good Lord. So
I wanted to save that later on. I don't want to start things off with that. So
praise be whatever baseball deity you want to, shout out to, but like, good Lord, that was a soul sucking embarrassment of a game. And thankfully the Mariners came out on top, because man alive, I was ready for Tampa to walk that off against Munoz, who was sketchy again and who had been pitching now 3 straight days. He's pitched. This was his 3rd day in a row that he pitched.
First time in his career doing that.
Yeah. And he threw a lot of pitches the last 2 nights. And you're just sitting there like, really? Because Brash kind of cruised through the 9th, and Topa didn't pitch yesterday. Topa only threw like 8 pitches yesterday. So you're just sitting there like, they have options besides Munoz. Who are they going to go to? They're going on. Oh, cool. And then he hits the first guy, and you're like, yep. I saw the script. You knew exactly how it was going to play out. And then again, thankfully somebody was looking out for you, because my God, that is the least deserved win of the Mariners season, but I'll take it, because
Cal Raleigh was looking out for you behind the plate, at least. Maybe not at the plate, but behind the plate.
No, definitely not at, but yeah.
Two base stealers thrown out. Out of what, 3? I think they've got 1. They converted one of them,
in the 9th,
including the one on Luke Raley there in the 9th, which was huge. I think even if he threw the ball on the walls one, he might have gotten walls. Like, from the angle they showed from behind the plate, it looked like it would have been close. But great game from Cal. I think he's thrown out 4 base stealers on this road trip.
Yep.
he's come up huge behind the plate. Obviously, he's had a pretty good road trip offensively, but what he's done behind the plate cannot be understated. So that, I mean, because of Rayleigh steals second there, Munoz walks the next guy. That changes the entire complexion of that inning. And we might be having a very different conversation if Cal Raleigh doesn't throw out Luke Rayleigh there. Also, great tag by JP Crawford on that as well. So
kind of hard to screw up that tag when the throw was literally perfect.
Awesome.
Right to the bag, right to his glove. All you got to do is drop the glove straight down.
Yeah.
And so, there were some moments that were fun. Castillo had a really good, last inning. Isaiah Campbell,
which is wild, right? Like his best inning comes
through 5
after he's already thrown 90 plus pitches. He ended up throwing 106 tonight.
Yep,
105, something like that. Yeah, man. I also, hey, Dom Canzone, baby, the catch, flipping over the wall.
I mean, I think an average left fielder makes that without going over the wall, but sure, no.
Sure.
No.
I thought that was gone, by the way. That was off of
so did I.
Bat,
the way the camera zoomed out, and you're just like, oh, well, there you go, 1-0. Like,
or 1-1. Yeah.
It definitely seemed to die, or he got it off the end of the bat or something. In Canzone, really good concentration. Didn't leap into the stands to make that catch. Let's make sure the narrative is correct. He caught the ball, and then his momentum took him over the wall. Right.
Yeah.
Great catch. And there was a few moments like that were like, oh, that's Isaiah Campbell's inning was like eye opening a little bit. Like, wow, who is this guy?
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was some good in this game. It wasn't all negative, but when you win 1-0 and you give up outs on the bases, you make errors, your pitchers are walking guys, like you just have in general have no idea where your pitches are going. Like you're just waiting for 2.5 hours to get what you deserve essentially. And somehow the Rays wanted it even less than the Mariners apparently. So it's a win, and you're now, half game back of Houston, 1 back in the win column there. You're 2 up on Texas, 2.5 on Texas. 3, technically 3 on Toronto. I know people say, oh, well, it's only 2 or whatever, but it's not. They have to win 1 more game than you. You are 3 games up on them. Start using that, guys. So at the end of the day, it's a win that's good because A, you won, and B, you put some more breathing distance between you and the playoff and a playoff exit. But let's not sit here and pretend this was a good game. Let's not sit here and pretend this was a fun game. Let's not sit here and box score scout and talk about how amazing Luis Castillo was. He wasn't. And yet the Mariners found a way to win a game that it felt like they really needed to, because the pitching matchups this weekend, not in your favor. The pitching matchups today and tomorrow, in theory, are. And we really feel like you have to come out of this series with at least a split. If you win it, fantastic. But if you can split this series, go 4-6 on a bad road trip, get back home, like, okay, we can breathe, we can relax. You can't go 3-7. 4-6 is okay. 5-5 would be great. And 6-4 is not going to happen. So, it felt like you needed a split here. So now you just have to be in a position to win one of these last 3 games, and you can get back home with a survivable, albeit not great, road trip. So it was a big game tonight, and again, thankfully, somebody was looking out for this Mariners squad, because they sure as heck weren't doing it for themselves. And they get the win.
Yeah, this was a terrible baseball game. Just from a pure baseball viewing experience, horrible game. Because again, it wasn't even a pitcher's duel, right? Like the Mariners bullpen was really good tonight, specifically Isaiah Campbell and Matt Brash. And we're going to talk about those guys in a moment, but it wasn't a good pitcher's duel. It wasn't a good offensive night. There was base running blunders and all this stuff. There were errors. It was a bad baseball game.
This is the equivalent of the Broncos versus Colts game last year on Sunday Night Football.
Oh God.
Where it just it's a low scoring game. It's a low scoring game, but it's not because the defenses are spectacular. It's because the offenses are inept. And that's what we had here tonight. But it's always good. It's always better if you're on the winning end of that. You can kind of, flush that and move on. But this game, this was the Charlie Fry versus the Sean Kaiser of MLB games. Yeah, think about that.
That was, yeah, wow. Yeah, I have no words for that. I'm speechless. I'm truly speechless. I have no words for it. Real quick, you mentioned the Blue Jays tiebreaker. Yes, we really do need to keep this in account here if we're, for Mariners fans. The Blue Jays, just to explain this, right? The Blue Jays and the Mariners split the season series with one another, 3-3. So it instead goes to intra-divisional records. So what is your record against your own division? The Blue Jays right now are 12-25 against the AL East. The Mariners, meanwhile, I believe, are 24-12. I'm just gonna look that up real quick. Here on StatMuse. All right, that's not answering my question right there. There we go. Yeah, they are 24-12 against the AL West. So we can just basically assume that the Mariners are going to have the tiebreaker on the Blue Jays. It's not official yet, but
if the Mariners
basically
lose that tiebreaker, it's irrelevant. They're not in the playoffs.
Yeah,
anyways.
they're not even in the playoffs at that point.
Right.
Yeah, so doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All right, let's talk about this bullpen some more. Just a moment, but first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners postgame show is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, and that's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the Mariners 1-0 win. Very exciting win down in St. Petersburg. You can catch Game 2 of the series on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So big night for the Mariners bullpen here, specifically Isaiah Campbell and Matt Brash. Both of those guys were great tonight. Isaiah Campbell especially, he basically had to get 4 outs tonight. He gets 3 strikeouts. He had a ground ball to Josh Rojas. Again, we're going to get to Josh Rojas in a little bit here. Rojas, the ball goes right through the wickets, and Campbell ends up having to face another batter there, but he strikes that guy out because he is an absolute dog. What a night for Isaiah Campbell. I mean, you texted me, you were like, where did that come from? What did you think about him tonight?
Thankfully, for Josh Rojas, that was the only mistake he made tonight. So pretty easy to look past that. Yeah. So what was kind of fun about Isaiah Campbell tonight is that it was fastball, man. Like, he was going right after guys with the heater. He threw 15 pitches, 11 of them were fastball, 4 were sliders. And he actually got 3 whiffs on the 4-seamer on 8 swings, which is a really good ratio. Also 2 whiffs on 2 swings on the sweeper, and then 1 whiff on 2 on the slider. They can't differentiate those 2 pitches, by the way, guys. They're all sliders. Okay. It was a 2-pitch mix for Campbell tonight. It was a fastball, it was a slider, but it was still 11 fastballs to 4 sliders. And yet he was able to get whiffs on 3 of the 4 sliders that he threw tonight. So yeah, he was able to use that pitch, and then he elevated the fastball very well at the top of the zone. At that point, it felt like the Rays were really pressing because it was a continuing trend we would see in both the 8th and the 9th inning. Tampa Bay really expanded the zone, particularly vertically, in the last couple innings here, and Campbell took advantage of it, and that's easily the best we've seen Campbell look all year. It's not close, and you hope that's something that can continue, because you can't just keep running Topa and Spire out there every single night in a 3-2 game in the 7th inning. You have to have somebody else out there. And we'll probably see him again tomorrow because Munoz and Brash are both likely down. So it's a really impressive outing, and one the Mariners certainly need. And hopefully, we've been talking about somebody in this bullpen needs to step up and take some pressure off some guys. Maybe that guy is Isaiah Campbell. You have to see it more than once, but tonight was a very good night for Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, it's his 5th consecutive scoreless outing. He's struck out 8 during that stretch. So maybe there's something there. maybe that is, like you said, the guy that needs to step up there in the bullpen. That would be great. Hey, during the offseason, we talked about Isaiah Campbell as a guy that could potentially have an impact on this bullpen in 2023, and maybe we're finally seeing that come to fruition. So that would be awesome. Also, hey, a stress-free inning from Matt Brash. Can you believe it? It was amazing. It was incredibly cathartic.
He's been pretty good. So.
I mean, he's been pretty good, but like he's had some base runners. He hasn't had like the best control, and that's Matt Brash mostly. But
I don't really get that worried when Brash walks a guy. It's when he gives up a hit. I'm like, uh-oh. Because like he can walk a guy.
Actually make contact on
him. You're like, okay. I mean, if he walks a guy, like, okay, well, whatever. But once I see that they can make contact on him that night, I'm like, ugh.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, Brash only had 2 whiffs today on 14 pitches. He threw 12 sliders. Like he was not interested whatsoever in the 4-seamer. He actually dropped a curveball in there. It was a called strike. So he only threw 2 pitches that weren't sliders. Both of them were called strikes. So good. That's a good ratio. Yeah. So yeah, just very little damage. No hard hit balls against him. He made, was it a Rosarena or Diaz? I think it was a Rosarena. It made him look like a fool on the one strikeout he did get.
Oh yeah. Rosarena where he wanted the umpire to ask the first base umpire and he wouldn't do it. And he went. It was so obvious. It was so obvious.
It was really like an attempt to save face because that was an embarrassing. That was Fernando Tatis versus Andres Munoz. Bad for just dominate. Just go sit down, man. You're embarrassing yourself at this point. And Brash was really good. It was kind of a different look from Brash. It was very slider heavy. Didn't get a ton of whiffs. Wasn't peppering the strike zone per se, but he got 3 quick outs. He only threw 14 pitches. There's a shot he's available tomorrow because he works so quickly. And it was just kind of I would say a very boring inning for Matt Brash, which is something that we don't see that often. Again, the one good strikeout, but like a couple ground balls after you're like, okay, well that was relatively, quick and not that noticeable.
That was amazing. It was amazing. I really could use that after, what this pitching staff has done the last few days. I mean, even when they've had some success, it hasn't been without a little excitement, right? So I'm fine with a very just nonchalant, very casual 3 up 3 down from a Mariners reliever, especially someone like Matt Brash. So I will absolutely take that. Real quick, on Luis Castillo, the 4 walks. He does get 8 strikeouts, had a couple of big strikeouts with some traffic on the base pass. So at least from that perspective, that was nice. And I don't know how many of you have listened to today's episode of Control the Zone, but Colby, I asked for 7 scoreless. I got 6 scoreless. Like it didn't look the way that I imagined it.
Totally looked exactly like you wanted it. Yeah. That was dominant Luis Castillo. All right.
Yeah. But I kind of got my wish.
He needed 108 pitches.
From the box score perspective, I got my wish.
Ty, are you a box score scout? Is that who you are?
Yeah. I mean, I'm exposing myself as a box score scout on today's show.
He did look better in the 5th and the 6th than he did in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. So I mean, there's that, but like, can we just get like Luis Castillo in the 5th and the 6th, like at least, for 3 or 4 innings?
He's saving those bullets for the postseason because, as we all know, Colby, we are locked into the postseason. There is no concern about that whatsoever.
Totally. So,
by the way, who would you rather face in the postseason, Colby?
You shut your filthy mouth.
Thank you for keeping that clean.
Yes. Not clean. I said filthy. But the velo was actually down a little bit. He topped out at 97. We didn't see any 98s or anything like that. 99. Sat 95.5, which is about, almost a full tick below what he normally is. So not a really exciting day from Castillo. And maybe some of that is just trying to find his release point. I don't know, but it's not a huge deal, but he threw a lot of fastballs today, and then he kind of split up the off-speed stuff pretty evenly. Change-up, slider, sinker. Best pitch today, I would say, is probably the slider. It's probably the change-up. Average exit velo on the change-up today, 75.7. He got 5 whiffs on 15 swings, got a called strike on it. it was a good pitch, and the slider was pretty good too. It just, he had no idea where he was throwing the baseball. Once the baseball left his hand, anybody's guess where it ended up. Thankfully, the Rays were very aggressive in their own game plan. They just happened to foul off 24 pitches, and they took some walks. So, but Castillo able to put guys away, which has been a trend that we've tracked the last few weeks for these Mariners starters. And Gilbert was able to do it yesterday. He put guys away. And Castillo able to do it today. Hopefully Kirby can do the same thing tomorrow, because we kind of know what the Rays game plan is going to be against Kirby. We've seen this matchup a handful of times now. And they're going to be aggressive. Of course they are. So hopefully George can put guys away, because he could not do that his last time out. And that will pretty much determine whether or not they have a shot to win the game.
You're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the Mariners 1-0 victory over the Tampa Bay Rays. You can catch Game 2 of the series tomorrow on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All right, Josh Rojas, we got to talk about it. Colby, I think this basically confirmed that Scott Service is never going to bench anyone for any reason, because if you're not going to do it tonight, you're never going to do it. This isn't a star player we're talking about. Rojas had one of the worst games I've seen an individual have, just straight up, like really, like just head in the clouds baseball tonight. The one ball that got by him, I'm not going to give him too hard of a time. The really hard hit ball that kind of clanked off, but the two really bad plays that stand out here, obviously getting doubled off at first on a little foul ball down the third base line. Like,
in the
what
infield.
is he? Yeah, in the infield. Like, what is he looking for there? Like, there is no excuse for that. There is no excuse. I don't care if he thought there were 2 outs or anything like that. There's nothing that you're going to accomplish by going halfway down the base path on that ball, because if the ball drops, it's a foul ball. It's not like the ball drops, you get to advance. Like, you're what are you doing? Just keep yourself glued to first base no matter what in that situation. No matter what, even if you think there are 2 outs, just keep yourself glued there, because that ball, nothing good comes of that ball dropping. Nothing bad necessarily comes of that dropping either. Like, yeah.
Yep.
So,
and you take the bat out of the hands of Julio Rodriguez with guys on first and second.
right. And maybe
Like,
we're having a different conversation tonight.
Yeah.
If that
Maybe.
doesn't happen, right? Maybe the Mariners end up winning 3-0.
By the way, Julio 0 for his last 10. It's clearly over. Like,
It's Julio over.
yep, it's done. That's a wrap.
Then again, the second play, we already talked about it a little bit during Campbell's inning, which he would have had a perfect, 1-2-3 inning had it not been for Rojas, who let a ball just go straight through his wickets. Again, like, where was his head at tonight? Like, that was bad. And I'm not really a proponent of benching guys, and I know for sure it's not Scott Service's style, but this was ridiculous, man. Like, and again, this pretty much confirms that Scott Service is never going to bench anyone for any reason. Because if he wasn't going to do it to Josh Rojas tonight, he's not going to do it for anyone.
He cost you 3 outs tonight. 3 in 7 innings. He committed 2 errors. They only gave him credit for 1, which again is stupid. If you cash in a W-2 check, I don't care how hard the ball is hit at you, you need to make that play. All right. That is very clearly an error, and they gave him a hit, whatever. That's an error. Okay. Rojas needs to make that play. Hit him right in the glove. The second one is just inexcusable. He just didn't get down, and clearly he is up in his own head right now. The only thing I could say for Rojas is that he is not a natural second baseman. He's got a lot more experience at third, but it's not like he's never played second. So those 2 plays are completely inexcusable. And then obviously getting doubled off on a fly ball that went 30 feet from home plate. Like, that's just a lack of awareness, or that's a lack of, anything. Like, you call it a brain fart or whatever, and it happens to everybody, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It's a pennant race. Like, you're in the middle of a pennant race. You're trying to win the division. You're trying to secure a spot in the playoffs. You do not have time for mental lapses here. Like, it's inexcusable. There's no reason for him to be in the lineup tomorrow. I'm sure he will be, because there's a righty on the mound. Like, that's supposed to matter. But it was bad. Like, it was an objectively bad, terrible game for Rojas. We're not saying anything that Josh doesn't know either. We're not picking on him. He was bad. He was the worst player on a field tonight.
He'll be the first person to say that, by the way.
Right. He was the worst player on the field tonight in one of the worst baseball games we've watched all year. He was bad. He was a problem, and not in a good way. So, I like Josh. He seems like a pretty good dude, and he certainly helped the Mariners at the plate, fairly recently. And, there's a valuable player there. We know there is. We know that there's a good, solid contributing player because he's done it, in the past. But tonight, at some point, Scott, it's not just about, holding guys accountable. It's about protecting your team, and it's about protecting your player. Get him off the field before this thing snowballs on him. And the fact, by the way, like, even if Rojas had like perfect defense tonight, he shouldn't be out there in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning defensively when you have Dylan Moore and Sam Haggerty on your bench and Caballero. Use one of them. They are better defenders than Rojas. So even if he's not struggling in the field, he shouldn't be out there late in games, especially in a tight game. Use your best defense. I don't know why Scott has consistently refused to use his bench this year, but that is what it is there for. Get Rojas out of second base, put in Dylan Moore, put in Caballero. They are better. Even if they're only 5% better, it's going to make a difference at some point to have an inferior defender out there. By the way, why is Dom Canzone still in the game in left field in the 9th? Yeah, he made a good catch tonight. Great, fantastic. Who would you rather have chasing down a fly ball? Dom Canzone, Cade Marlowe, Dylan Moore. I don't care who you pick. It's certainly not it's not Canzone. He's last on that list I gave you. So yeah, use your bench.
I'd probably rather have him than Demo.
You're insane then. So you are. But that's fine because Demo should be playing second base at the end of the game anyway. So, I don't know why Scott didn't use his bench again tonight. Obviously, Scott's never going to be the guy who disciplines players, in front of others. But my God, like, it's tough to talk about, holding guys accountable and how, how much you care about making the playoffs and all that stuff when you just have a guy who's just killing you on a night and you're just like, whatever, doesn't matter. So thankfully they won.
And again, it's not a star, right? Because you can kind of wrap your head around, like, if this was Julio, right? And I know you don't agree with that,
Nope.
But like, I can wrap my head around that more than for Josh Rojas. Ain't
nobody above criticism, my man.
No one's above reproach for sure, but I can I can wrap my head around that a little bit more than Rojas. And if you're not even doing it for Rojas, you're not going to do it for anyone.
No, I'm sure. Obviously, Josh knows. Like, he'd be the first one to tell you. Teammates understand. They don't like it. I guarantee you that they're not all happy with Josh tonight, but they get it. Right? Everybody has bad games and stuff like that, but we're in a pennant race right now, man. And if you're just stacking mistake on top of mistake on top of mistake on top of each other in one game, I can't care about your feelings. I'm sorry. I have to make a change. I have to do what's best for my ball club. And having Josh Rojas in defensively late in the game, even if he's fielding the ball okay for the day, is not an acceptable thing to do. Put Dylan Moore out there. Put Caballero out there. Put the best defensive team you possibly can on the field in a one-run game in the 8th and 9th inning. Do it.
That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the Mariners 1-0 victory over the Tampa Bay Rays. Again, you can catch Game 2 of this series on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app tomorrow. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.